Firstly, you want to be sitting in the bush, because when you're within 5 meters of the bush, you're able to see out of it, but the enemies are not able to see you. Then, once you've spotted an enemy at this location, you will pull about 10 meters behind the bush, and you'll be able to shoot through it without revealing your location. Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to week 4 of Map Tactics now. As you can see, the winner last week was Arctic Region, your most requested video. And remember, if you want to see your map next week, then suggest it down in the comments below, and importantly, rate it up. Especially if you have spelling skills as strong as Golden Blade 72. So these videos take me quite a while to do, so I'd really appreciate it if you rate them at the bottom. So these tactics have helped me reach 1800 efficiency, 2000 WN7 and 60% wins in solo signing. I must mention the caveat that these are my tactics. I seem to be able to make these work, but sometimes they're not always the best, and you should definitely go and look at other people's replays and try and figure out your own best positions. So without further ado, let's look at what I would do with heavy tanks on Arctic Region. So starting on the green base at Arctic Region in a heavy tank, you immediately have to look at the team composition. Do you have very many heavy tanks? Do you have very many large tank destroyers without turrets? The reason why I ask this is because the common place to camp on Arctic Region is around this location here. Sometimes you'll find that maybe 2/3 of your team decide to go here, leaving very few tanks to try and cover the important north of the map. Consequently, maybe you're in a heavy tank that's quite quick, 35 kilometers and 40 kilometers an hour, and you can actually progress to either up this corner to camp here and work this ridge line, trying to give fire support along this flank, and also on anyone who cheekily pokes along this corner, with the intent of progressing down to this corner once your medium tanks have cleaned out this area. You can continue to push with the intent of eventually trying to make it to these rocks, making it to other rocks, going through this area, which is a bit of a kill zone here, which you're going to have to get through, and indeed pushing on into the enemy base. However, my favorite location and what I would recommend with a heavy tank is to be using the south. My initial starting location is located about here. You can see in the gameplay footage that I like to wedge myself in and have the first shot aimed at this corner here, along this line here. As soon as somebody comes around this corner, I like to have a shot on them here, or somebody who's spotted in the bush here. Also, if you're very quick and maybe you've got a good spawn, maybe you've spawned far down south and you've made it into position quickly, then you can even catch very slow SPGs if you've got very good view range. Once you're in position here, be mindful that quite a few enemy tanks try and rush behind this rock here. So if you can try and track them, often you can get a hell of a lot of support from the rear and also from artillery shells. In this location here, you're fairly safe against artillery until they locate at the very southern point here, where they will be able to drop bombs on you. If you feel that you're under too much artillery fire, then simply pull back into a location such as I'm showing you now. If you feel that the enemy artillery has not dug in here and that there's a lack of enemies who are holding this corner, then you want to advance. If you hug the ridge line, you're fairly safe from artillery, but expect to take an absolute pounding from some enemy artillery. This means that really, if you decide to push along this pass, you have to do it with conviction and you have to take out the enemy who might be camping here. Also realize that once you reach this corner, that there is a very large kill zone, and quite often enemy tanks will be camping up at this location, shooting down on people as they progress. Okay, so let's take a look at what I like to do with my heavy tanks at Red Base. I feel that Red Base has a better approach to the north, and I feel that camping at this location on this corner is quite a strong play. With careful work, you can avoid most of the enemy artillery that do not locate to the north, and by poking around this corner, you can spot enemies that like to camp in here, and also be mindful that you're going to be taking some fire likely from here, so hopefully you've got good view range and you'll be able to spot these tanks when they fire at you and put pressure on them. Eventually, you want to progress around this corner. You want to progress to this location with the intent of moving around and into the enemy base. Once you get to this area here, you can really pound any of the enemies who are camping in this location if they're still camping here. If you don't want to go north from red base, then you want to progress as quickly as you can to this corner. This corner is completely safe from artillery, and you'll be able to poke and take shots at any players who play poorly along this ridgeline. Be mindful, however, that skilled players who locate along this ridgeline will be able to poke you very well. However, remember that you will not be able to take any artillery fire until you reach this position here, this line here. And any enemies that poke this corner will be taken out by artillery that locate here, and even some artillery who are able to fire shots from here. Once you reach this corner, this is where you have to decide if you're going to progress with conviction or not. Be mindful that when you reach this corner, any of the enemy artillery who are located up to the north will be able to take you out very effectively now. Once you reach here, you either want to push to the opposite side, or you want to push your way up along this ridge, taking in hull down locations, trying to push the enemy back from this line. What I would recommend is that you only do this push if your team have taken the north, as they will be able to get very effective fire down on the enemy if they reverse too much, hopefully surrounding the enemy and taking them out effectively. There's also the opportunity when you reach this southern location to do a very interesting run along here. You'll be spotted when you reach this point, so be mindful that you cannot do a full sneak, but you will be able to get up into this location, and especially if you've got good artillery who are able to support you from any idiots who decide to suicide rushing down to try and get you. If you've got good gun depression, you're going to be able to take shots at the enemy who like to camp up here, and combining this location with teammates who push to this location and get shots on the sides of their turret while they try and aim at you at this location is very, very effective. So, to talk about my points of victory for Arctic region for heavy tanks. Spawning from green base, I like to start here with the intent of either pulling back and defending the corner or progressing. When I reach this kill zone, you have to attack with conviction or not at all. Alternatively, if your medium tanks are not going to attack north very heavily, you should try and get up into this position with the idea of progressing to this corner, waiting until the enemy artillery are maybe distracted, and then pushing from rock to rock and into the enemy base. From red base, I like to start down here with the intent of progressing up to this corner, where then you have to attack with conviction when you reach this point, or alternatively take a trip down and provide a new angle of approach for enemies who like to camp along this area here. If you must go north on this map, fight at this corner, poke enemies who like to camp in here, and poke enemies when you spot them up here. They will likely have to fire at you with the intent of progressing here to here, wait for the enemies to be spotted here, and progressing to this location where you should be able to take shots down on the enemy. So now to talk about what I like to do with my medium tanks on Arctic region. I really feel that the north is your playground. This is one of my favourite maps for my medium tanks, and hopefully I can show you why. If I'm spawning from green base, you want to make your approach as quickly as possible along here to progress to this location here. This location here is completely safe from enemy artillery. This can be a very dangerous point if you're in a slow medium tank, such as Centurion. If the enemies have got fast mediums that can locate here, or even here, or even if they've gone full attack mode and they're locating up here, they can catch you, and if they catch you in this area that I'm shading in here, the enemy artillery can still hit you, and skilled artillery will be pre-aiming for that location. However, when you've made it into position, there are a lot of opportunities for you. You can have this location here, which will allow you to spot through bushes at the corner. Quite often you can actually get spots without being spotted here, and any heavy tanks or medium tanks or tank destroyers that locate up here will be able to give you lots of fire support on that corner. Also keep in mind that any artillery that locate in the north will be able to drop some serious bombs on that corner for you. If you feel that the enemy are being too passive on this corner, feel free to poke this corner and try and get some more spots off. If poking the corner is not enough for you, you've even got a second opportunity to poke. You can progress up this location here with spotting across. Be very careful when you poke here. I suggest to poke backwards in some medium tanks so that you're able to fall back quickly. You should be able to spot anything in this area here. Be mindful though that some TDs have got good camo rating and will locate here, and they will try and poke you, and until you fall back you will be hit by artillery. so do it quickly. I suggest when using this location to make good use of Sixth Sense. Poke up, see if you get spotted. If you don't, then go and have a proper spot and then pull back. Medium tanks also have the opportunity to progress along this location here. However, I feel that it is quite dangerous. Be mindful that any enemies who are located up on here will create a kill zone on you from here to here. There is a very useful rock here that you can use. So you're fully capable of falling back to here if you need to. I will go this way if I find that my team have located heavily along here and are poking this corner, as I want to approach the enemy from a different angle. Keep in mind that quite a few enemies will be located here, behind this rock. Likely to be some TDs along here, creating a kill zone along here. So once you reach this location, you really have to get into these rocks, and then consider poking and pushing with conviction. When you get past this corner, you're really going to be starting to be attacked by all the artillery who will be focusing in on you. If you get to these rocks, it's quite likely that you'll spot any enemy artillery who locate up here. And when you reach these rocks, it's likely that you'll spot any artillery that will locate here. Keep in mind that you're going to have to dig out anyone who was here, especially if you spotted them when they were shooting at you along this approach. If you can reach this location, and the enemy is still camping here, then you have wonderful opportunities to get kill shots down onto them. Alternatively, there are some options to progress further south, where you can use these undulations in the rocks to dig in. You will be able to get shots down onto the corner. Keep in mind though that this location is not the safest from artillery. Dig in this location if you feel that you want to try and progress up, especially if the enemy have really gone around the corner. I've quite often been able to sneak in and take out the enemy artillery, which provides a surprising amount of cover from here. Okay, talking about what I like to do with my medium tanks from red base, I still like to fight the north. I feel that I want to work this corner, try and shoot them as they come down, and basically poke this corner. Be mindful that the enemies often try and locate along here, but this is not really a bad thing. A competent player on this corner can get lots of kill shots at them as they make their progression along here. If I'm in a very fast medium tank, I like to do something very aggressive. I like to locate along here, around, with the intent of digging in on these rocks. If you can dig in on these rocks, the enemy have no cover from your artillery. The enemy will quite likely stop up here, be hit by your own artillery, whereas you in this location here are mostly covered from artillery that will be from the north, and only artillery from the south who get lucky shots will be able to hit you. This location is aggressive, and I only suggest going here if you feel that you're in a very nasty medium tank for your matchup. Let's say you're in a T-54 and there are not many tier 9 tanks on the enemy team. You really feel that you can dominate from this location, then go for it. If it's a smash and grab game, sometimes you can get the most experience by going here. I wouldn't recommend this location to beginning players, as it's very touch and go and you have to really be very aware of where the enemy will be coming. Quite often by locating up here, you can catch the slower enemies who still seem to, for some reason, push along this corridor. Locating up here, basically you're just going to be a spotting device for your team. Any teammates who locate up here will be able to get clean shots in, especially for the enemies that poke around here. Be mindful though that in a recent update they've added ways to poke down onto you, so be careful with that. So just to quickly go over my points of victory for medium tanks spawning at green base, I like to rush to this location as quickly as I can with the intent of poking up here, poking this corner, and then eventually ending up around here to into the enemy base. So my points of victory from the red base are to either rush quickly into this location and to dominate the game here, or to end up here, poking the corner, defending this location here, with the intent of defending, more or less. However, if the game progresses, you can advance to try and get shots down onto the enemy from these locations here. So now to talk about what I like to do in my light tanks from green base. I feel that your light tanks on this map are very similar to your medium tanks. There aren't that many forward aggressive scouting bushes on this map, and I really feel that if you've got a light tank in this matchup, that you really need to almost play it like a medium tank. So just to reiterate what you should probably do differently in your scouts, you will always be able to push forwards and aggressive into this location here, with the intent of either poking up here to get spots, poking the corner. One thing I will say is that if you're very fast and you don't see that the enemy have got very many quick tanks, you can get to this corner really quickly. and basically light them up as they go across this zone. And if your artillery are awake, then they will be able to get shots down onto them. You want to poke up here to be able to get your spots. Wait for the game to progress, guys, and basically be an assist for your team. It's very easy to defend this location here in light tanks, and it's a lot easier for light tanks to be able to get round up here, as there are smaller targets and faster targets, which are harder to hit. Also, quite often with my light tanks, I like to end up going down into these locations here, able to get spots on the corner, spots on this ridgeline for your artillery, and also with the intent of trying to make a run-in, especially in a high artillery game. The amount of times I've been able to sneak into their base and get spots for the artillery and take them out without taking fire is quite impressive. So what to do in my light tanks from red base? If you've got extra high view range, some people like to use this location here to be able to spot enemies as they progress along this line and along this line, and also catch any silly people who progress along here. However, I don't feel this is a very good use of yourself in the game, and I usually like to rush up into these bushes, be able to get spots as they progress, poke this corner, and basically I like to absolutely harass. I like to be absolute harassment. There is one very dangerous route that used to be a lot more effective a few patches ago. A few patches ago they had a more of a prominent ridgeline along here. This location around here is no longer protected from the north at all, and they can just drive in on you. However, some scouts still like to progress along this ridgeline, hugging this ridgeline to try and stop yourself from getting spotted from the north, with the intent of doing a run along here and then probably falling back as quickly as you can, hopefully spotting as many of the enemy artillery as you can. I will say that this location here has been severely nerfed, and it's still quite a hard job to try and pull off scout runs in this area. The amount of medium and scout tanks that I see trying to make fights along here and simply getting crippled from these locations and this location, it's not really funny anymore. So my points of victory from the green base are rushing to this corner early, pulling back and poking from here, and poking here with the intent of going down behind these rocks and advancing into the enemy base. My points of victory from the red base to try and get up into these bushes here to be able to get the early spots off, and then basically just digging in on this corner and playing in pure harassment mode as if you were almost a medium tank. So now to talk about what I like to do in my tank destroyers on Arctic region. If I'm spawning from the green base, I like to do very similar things to my heavy tanks. I like to locate down here, be able to get the shot down into this bush and also enemies that appear along between this line, with the intent of either pulling back or progressing. This area again is an absolute kill zone, so if you go here you have to attack with conviction. Alternatively, TDs can do a good job by camping here, shooting down on medium and light tanks who should be spotting for you along this corner. Eventually when the game progresses you will be able to locate down on this corner and help out your team along this very dangerous corridor. Remember that when you reach this corner that you're no longer in any artillery cover and the enemy will be likely to be aiming for you. You can use these bush lines up here quite effectively in the rocks to be able to get hits onto enemy. You want to keep attacking, darting from rock to rock and into the enemy base. From red base, I like to progress to the south corner with the intent of attacking round. When you reach this location, be mindful that the enemy will be putting a hell of a lot of pressure on you and you need to attack with your team with conviction. This location here is fairly strong. From red base, you can get kill zones anywhere along here. You can create it and you will be able to decimate anything that progresses along this line. Also, one of my favourite new locations that I'm starting to develop is what I'm calling the hipster bush. Now I'm going to show you how to use the hipster bush. Firstly, you want to be sitting in the bush, because when you're within 5 meters of the bush you're able to see out of it, but the enemies are not able to see you. Then once you've spotted an enemy at this location, you will pull about 10 meters behind the bush and you'll be able to shoot through it without revealing your location. I do this quite often in my live streams, so think about coming and checking them out if you want to see it in action. When you've won the fight for the north, you want to end up progressing to this area here with the intent of shooting down on any enemies who are camping here. Alternatively, you can pull back and use this very campy location here if the enemy progress, and you will need to create a kill zone from here onwards. It's just one giant kill zone for this location. Be mindful though that enemy artillery, unless you very much hug these rocks, will be able to decimate you. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed my map tactics for Arctic region. It's the 4th week I've been doing this. Please continue to rate the videos if you enjoy them. It helps to get them as much exposure as possible, because these do take me quite a long time to do. Look down in the comments below and suggest the map that you want to see next week. And as was done for Arctic region, give them some upvotes. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, why not think about subscribing or at least checking out all my other map tactics videos. As always guys, you've been epic, thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.